This week, we're celebrating the heartbeat of patient care, our veterinary technicians. Happy Vet Tech Week. If you didn't know, Vet Life Reimagined has a playlist spotlighting our vet tech guests from across the profession, sharing their stories, their passion, and the impact they make every single day. Possibilities exist when the entire team works and celebrates together. So take a moment to celebrate the techs who keep our team strong, and check out the playlist now on the Vet Life Reimagined YouTube channel. Thank you. VetMed doesn't happen without you. Welcome to Vet Life Reimagined. Today's episode is a little different and very special. This recording comes from a live panel discussion I had the honor of moderating for the Latinx Veterinary Medical Association during Hispanic Heritage Month. The LVMA hosted a series of celebratory events, and this conversation, What It Means to Be Latinx in Veterinary Medicine, was one of the highlights. The LVMA kindly allowed me to share this discussion here on the podcast so that the Vet Life Reimagined audience could hear directly from some incredible voices across veterinary medicine. I'll let them introduce themselves here in a minute, but two of the panelists, Dr. Valerie Marcano and Paul Miranda, have both been on the podcast in the past, so I will link their episodes in the show notes. You'll hear stories of resilience, belonging, identity, and mentorship from veterinarians and professionals who are shaping the future of our field. And while this conversation offers support to those who identify as Latinx, anyone in vet med can walk away with valuable takeaways. Veterinary medicine is stronger when we embrace diversity, empathy, and community. I'm deeply grateful to the LVMA for inviting me to host this event and for their ongoing work in creating spaces for visibility, connection, and celebration across the veterinary profession. So here is the powerful conversation on what it means to be Latinx in veterinary medicine, recorded live as part of the LVMA's Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. All right, I saw it flash that the webinar has started, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself so you know who's talking really quickly. I'm Dr. Megan Sprinkle. I'm a boarded veterinary nutritionist, but really, one of my favorite things that I get to do is I have a podcast called Vet Life Reimagined, and I'm very passionate about sharing personal individual journeys in veterinary medicine so we can really show the diversity of things that are out there. So if you're here to understand about possibilities and learning more about veterinary medicine, what's out there, and learn from your colleagues, you're in the right place. So our webinar tonight is part of a series of events that the Latinx Veterinary Medical Association has been putting together. They've been very excited about this webinar, and we're going to discuss what it means to be Latinx in veterinary medicine. Because we've got 5 great panelists, and I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for conversation. I'm going to go ahead and let the panelists introduce themselves in a fun way. If you don't mind, I know your name is on your little square, but if you don't mind sharing your name and where you are in veterinary medicine. Like I said, it's really fun to see all the different things people do in vet med. So if you mind sharing a little bit about your current role, that would be fantastic. And I'm going to start with Javier, our alligator doctor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Javier Nevarez. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I'm currently a professor of zoological medicine at the LSU School of Veterinary Medicine. I came to Baton Rouge 31 years ago to do undergraduate animal science pre-vet program and never left. I've been here ever since. I cannot go too far up north because I do not like the cold. So Louisiana is just fine by me, and we have good food down here. So I thoroughly enjoy being here in the state.
How about Maria? You're next on my lineup.
All right. So, hi, everyone. My name is Maria Jose Navarrete. I recently moved to Long Island in New York. So I arrived 3 months ago. I'm an associate professor of anatomic pathology, and also I am an assistant dean for student success at Long Island University. So I'm, very excited to be here. So thanks a lot for your invitation. So anatomic pathology and everything that has to do with student success is my area.
Student success. That's awesome. And you've done a lot of DEI also in your career too. So very relevant for tonight in Level Lab.
Yes, that comes into the student success and that part. So my career, my big passion is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's why I knew a few of the people here in the panel, and we have connected, and we have been doing a lot of work in multicultural communication. So yeah, it's been a really all right.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Ashtri, you're next.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. I am Ashtri Bonaparte. I'm actually in California, so hopefully some West Coast people are on the line. I am originally from New York City. I was born and raised there. I'm first generation Puerto Rican and Ecuadorian. I did move to California to pursue small animal internal medicine, so I am an internist. And I am the head of the internal medicine department here at VCA West Coast in Fountain Valley, California. And I'm also a committee member for the DEI committee of the ACVIM. It's a brand new committee that was just started last year. So we're kind of like in year 2 going in, and we have a bunch of new initiatives, really revamping what it means to be diverse and equitable and inclusive in specialty medicine.
Excellent. And Paul?
Yeah, I am COO of Latinx VMA. Also, during the day, I am a director of ops with formerly Mission Vet Partners, now Mission Pet Health. I oversee about 25 hospitals in the Midwest. Cuban, grew up in Miami and now live in the Midwest, so big difference.
I'm the other way around. I was in the Midwest and then came to Miami, but love how we are really representing the coast to coast here. Thank you, Paul. And Valerie.
Hello, I'm Valerie Marcano, and I don't know, I do a little bit of everything. I am in North Carolina. I have my own consulting business. I'm boarded in poultry medicine, and I started, along with my husband, we co-founded Pawsibilities Vet Med, which is a nonprofit that does a lot of work in DEI and in mentorship, and I've been really happy to get to work with a lot of you that are here, including Maria Jose, who's one of the members of our board of directors, and Miguel, who is one of our mentors within our community. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Speaking of, Miguel?
Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Miguel Ortiz. I'm originally from Guatemala, and I moved to the States 31 years ago, actually, much like Javier in 94. I went very north. I went to the cold in Indiana. I went to school at Purdue, and I started practicing small animal medicine after school in Seattle. So I went all the way out West Coast, and now family and circumstances have brought me back to the Midwest, but I went a little bit past Indiana. I'm in Pittsburgh now. I went back to school and did a master's in international development during COVID, actually. Which led into getting boarded in preventive medicine last year, which was really great. And my day-to-day, I'm a small animal general practitioner here in Pittsburgh, which is great. And it's just great to see everybody, good to see some colleagues here, and excited for this conversation.
Awesome. You really did go all over. Well, if anybody is familiar with my podcast, one of the my favorite questions to start with is actually, when did you know you wanted to get into veterinary medicine? So I want to actually talk about when all of you started even thinking about veterinary medicine. And so I wanted to start with Javier. Did you always know you wanted to be an alligator veterinarian? And I keep calling you alligator veterinary, but was zoo medicine an interest always? But when did you first know that you wanted to start pursuing veterinary medicine?
So that's a great question, because my trajectory is kind of funny, but I've grown up in Puerto Rico. I lived in the beach a lot. I sailed a lot. So I always saw a lot of manatees and sea turtles. So I was attracted to that. And I kind of wanted to go the marine biology path. But then I was like, no, that's really not for me. And then vet med was it from there. But I really wanted to do food animal and equine. So I was actually a big food animal person in animal science. I still enjoy doing food animal work more than I do dogs and cats. I love my dogs and cats, but if they get sick, I drop them off at the vet, give them the credit card, and I leave. I have no business doing anything to them. And then once I got into vet school, I started working with our raptor and wildlife rehabilitation unit. And then that was it. From that moment on, I used to think that exotic animal veterinarians were quack, that they didn't know what they were doing. So here I am. So that's always a life lesson, not to judge. Some of us learning the hard way. It just kind of carried up from there, and I never looked back. And I never thought I would be doing alligator medicine. I finished vet school. I did an internship at LSU. I did not get a residency. And then an opportunity came about to do a PhD and start working with the alligators. And it's just one of those things that I've always had that personality and that drive to take advantage of the opportunities presented. So when the door opens, I walk and make the most of it. So, it's definitely been a fun path. I definitely enjoy it. And it allows me to mix that food animal side of things because the alligators are production animals. They're still a food animal kind of situation. So it's funny how those interests eventually join, and I tell it to the students, everything you do in life is going to come to play at some point. It might not be 5, 10, 15 years from now, but every experience that you do in life is going to help you at some point in your career or your life. So enjoy it. Keep it in mind because you never know when you're going to use that tool in your daily work.
Oh, I love that. That's excellent. All right. Miguel, you pop to the next. So I'll popcorn it to you.
Thank you. That's a really good question. The way I like to tell the story is that in undergrad, I took a summer job and I went to Costa Rica. And my job was to catch butterflies and to catalog where the butterflies would lay their eggs. And to do that in the jungle, you have to go to where a tree has fallen so that the sunlight hits the ground so that these plants can grow. And so I spent all summer trouncing around fallen trees in the Costa Rican jungle. As it turns out, that's where snakes like to live as well. Very poisonous, scary snakes. I never saw one very close, but I was definitely scared of it for a whole summer. And so I decided, you know what, this whole biology thing, I'm going to just go take care of the animal. And so I came back to Purdue and I went to the office of registrar. I said, you know what, take me off of this thing. Let me go do the veterinarian thing. And I haven't looked back since. So
we'll leave the snakes for
Javier. Yeah. If there's a snake that's called the buffalo killer, I don't want to mess with it. Okay, Javier can have them.
Gotcha. Have Javier on speed dial. Wonderful. That's a great story. Ashtri, what about you? When did you know you wanted to get into veterinary medicine?
My infancy has always been about animals. My mom she was a single mom. I grew up in the Bronx in New York City, and she always had a love for animals. And so it was really my mom, I'd have to say, because it's kind of funny. We would go around the streets in the Bronx. So a lot of stray cats would get hit by cars. So we would give them proper burials. And so we would take their bodies and we would bury them. I would then make little cardboard boxes for the cats during the winter time and line it with material and feed them. And so that was my job on the block. So it's a different kind of jungle, not the Costa Rican jungle, but definitely the concrete jungle. And these animals needed someone to help. And I think it was at that point where I was like, I think I'm an animal whisperer, and I think this is my calling. And it was like fourth grade. I don't know how old I was in fourth grade, but some guy that was doing like mentorship for the inner city kids in New York City, he came and he gave each one of us a book, which is Dr. Seuss's All the Places You'll Go. I don't know if you're familiar with this book. And so I read this book, and he asked everyone in the class to write down what is it that they want to be when they get older. And I wrote down that, and it was in 1995, so however old I was then, that I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I spelled veterinarian wrong, or a zookeeper, because I really love zoo animals. And he said, every year you're going to open this book and you're going to commit, like, is this what you still want to do, when every year? And to this day, I still have the book. I still have that letter. And it has always been my desire to be a veterinarian. And I was close to being a zookeeper. I was a junior zookeeper at the Central Park Zoo in New York City. But I ended up going to vet school, and here I am. So,
Wow. Just to reiterate, right? Like wherever there are animals, that is where we can go. And so, yeah, absolutely. Animal whispers, animals everywhere need us. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Valerie, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, it's actually a little similar to Ashtri's story. And I grew up in the Dominican Republic, where my mom was a veterinarian, and I grew up around animals. I didn't necessarily think that that's what I wanted to do, but I moved to the Bronx for high school, and living with my aunt and uncle, they didn't have any animals. And so I started working and volunteering at pet shops and pet stores and vet hospitals in the area, and eventually figured that's what I wanted to do. So I ended up going to Cornell for animal sciences and really falling in love with research, and eventually did a dual vet PhD program at the University of Georgia, working with poultry, went and worked in the pharmaceutical industry for a few years, and here I am.
Yeah. Our parents, they have a huge influence on us. And just to share, Valerie, your mom, as a veterinarian, she also did a unique job too, because I think she did small ruminants, right?
So she went to vet school to focus in small ruminants, and then she did her thesis on rabies in bats in caves in the Dominican Republic. But then she had her own small animal practice, and at the same time worked full-time for the Ministry of Agriculture. She started in the small ruminant division, but then went into the poultry division, which is how I ended up finding out about poultry medicine. And while I was doing the dual degree program at UGA, she actually went off to Brazil and did her PhD in epidemiology, and then went back and ran one of the national diagnostic labs in the DR. So there was this joke that she couldn't take it, that I was going to have 2 doctoral degrees and she only had 1, so she had to go get another one. But she had a pretty calf.
She did. Well, it also sounds like you both share this interest in doing lots of different things too. So,
and she's the reason I learned that, vet med, having a DVM is really a problem-solving degree. You don't you can focus as much as you want, and you can specialize as much as you want, but the problem-solving part of it is really what it's all about.
Yeah. And exactly, I think it was Javier, you said, all your experiences, right? You're learning these skills that you can always take forward. So problem solving is a huge one that we have to do. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Paul, how did you find your way into veterinary medicine?
Started originally in high school and met my husband at Penn. We both attended Penn, and he had the idea to buy a vet hospital. We were very young, which was a crazy idea. Banks were giving money to anyone that had a heartbeat, and that was a very long time ago.
That's wonderful. All right. And then Maria, you got your veterinary degree in Chile, but when did you know that you wanted to get into veterinary medicine?
I think, as you said, that parents have a huge influence, right? So my dad was a chemistry professor at the university in Chile, and my mom was a social worker and a psychologist. So I had the best of different, 2 super different worlds. But I love that my dad had, those labs that were filled with amazing things and, like little tubes and stuff. So I from a very early age, I knew that I wanted to be, surrounded by science, and they were talking a lot about nature and animals. And then we traveled a lot and we were spending a lot of time in nature. And my sister, actually, she's also a veterinarian. She's 5 years older than me. So she's starting studying veterinary medicine. And I was like, I want to do something with animals. I don't know if it is, veterinary medicine or not. But as I saw her, like moving through the career and doing, like all the fun stuff in the first year with, bones and studying and having, like these awful things to remember. Still, I was like, I'm in love with that. So I decided to go into veterinary medicine. But the question I get a lot is like, how did you decide to move into pathology? Like, why would you choose like dead animals over, like the medicine part of it? And I think it was because I got like my first no when I was at my DVM program, because I started being interested, like in solving problems. And I really wanted to, see different animals, different species. And then I asked my pathology professor if he had time for teaching me in my last year. I really had some time because I was finishing my project, because we have a thesis to fulfill the whole program. And he said, no, I don't have time. And I was devastated, right? I was like, I really want to do this. And then I really need like a mentor or someone. And then I spoke with the dean because I was so pissed. And then he said, like, I'm going to connect you with the pathologist in the human medicine school, right? So I spent time with them, 6 months. I did an internship with them. And then I just fell in love with it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So it kind of opened a lot of windows when I had like a no, so this big door closed. But then I had a chance to meet other people outside my field that encouraged me to move and to go abroad and to explore the world. And here I am after living in 5 countries and, like moving around and getting to know lots of pathologists and lots of cool colleagues. So yeah. So it was, like my parents and that professor, and we are very good friends with that pathology professor. I always tell him like that no really pushed me to, gain some more confidence and start knocking doors. So, yeah.
Well, actually, that's a perfect segue to the next question I was going to start asking, because I think that a lot of the challenges that come up in our life, they can really shape a lot of who we are, our efforts, and everything going forward. And so do you want to ask about any particular challenge that you have faced in your career thus far? And I guess since we're here talking about what it's like being Latinx in veterinary medicine, if there is one that specifically comes back to that aspect of it too. I am a positivity person, but it's also really important to talk about challenges and how you overcame them. So let's talk about any challenges that you have had to deal with. And Valerie, do you mind starting on that one? I'll put you on the spot. Hard question.
Yeah, I guess I can start. I think for me, it has been trying to figure out exactly where I fit. So as one of the darker colored members of my family with the curly hair and whatnot, I a lot of times felt a little bit out of place. And even in being in the Latinx community, there's a lot of variation even within families. And I remember growing up with that stigma of if you don't do your hair a certain way, it's going to be bad hair and all of these things. And even coming into vet med, trying to figure out do I hang out with the Latin community? Do I hang out with the Black community? Does it have to be either or? Are they really different? Or can you be both? Do I have to pick? And then even realizing the concept of being an Afro-Latina and overcoming some of those like internal issues, but also like the external forces that were perpetuating them at the same time. Because it's this combination of like, oh, you're going to look like the community where you want to practice, but also trying to not internalize when somebody says, oh, you're going to be a great vet because you speak Spanish. It's like, oh, no, I'm going to be a great vet and I speak Spanish, right? And so I think overcoming some of those challenges and even some of the stereotypes of like, am I like the hot-headed Latina? Am I the angry Black woman? Can I be both at the same time? How does that even work? And trying to find my own place in vet med and just realize like, I'm just me. And if I need a label, I'll pick it however I'm feeling at that time, but I don't have to pick a mold and I don't have to fit within it. And I can just kind of do my own thing, and I'm still working on it. But I get a little bit better every year-ish.
Is there a particular something that helps you kind of come to that place? I don't even know how to ask this question. If someone else is feeling this way, like from your experience, what seems to have helped you the most? Let me go for
honestly talking to the people around me, talking to my friends. When you talk to your friends in your community, when you talk to your mentors, like the people that know you, if they truly know you, they don't put you in a box. They don't put you like, they don't see you as a label. And so just saying, I feel this way, and even stepping outside of yourself and thinking, if it was one of my friends that was feeling this way, what would I say to them? And just reminding each other that we're more than like what we think we are. But yeah, just it's taken me a long time to open up about a lot of those insecurities, and just messaging a friend and saying, hey, I'm feeling this way. And I ended up having a period of time where I would just say, hey, like, I'm home, I'm working from home today. And like a different friend would fill in a half hour within my day that I would hop on my treadmill. And then I would just walk and catch up with a different friend like every few days. And that has helped a lot.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah. Well, I don't have to popcorn every time. Did anybody want to volunteer on this question?
Or I really resonated to what Valerie was talking about, because I feel very similar in terms of like my identity. I'm also one of the darker skinned Latinas, and I also have curly hair. And growing up in the Bronx, I was surrounded by lots of Puerto Ricans, Dominicans. And so I felt very comfortable. But then outside of the like your city and your community, you do feel a little bit lost in terms of identity. And I think I did struggle with that in my veterinary journey. I was fortunate. I went to Tuskegee University, so that school was very diverse. And so I felt, very comfortable. But when it came time to interviewing for internships or residency programs, I did feel a bit uncomfortable because maybe my accent was a little too thick, or I didn't look like the other candidates. I was not from those cities or towns, they were not urban cities. And so back then, when I was doing all of this, it was very different. I didn't have a lot of resources or community to connect to. LVMA was not even a thought at that time. So, now I think there's a lot of resources in place to help Latinas, Latinos, Latinx community, and, just people of color in general to find their community, find resource, find mentors. Like I didn't have any of that. Also, my mom only spoke Spanish up to a certain time, and single mom, and my older sister was like out of the household. So I was trying to do all of this stuff by myself. And I was the only one that wanted to be a veterinarian. And I knew nobody else of color that was a veterinarian until I graduated from college and I got a job in a veterinary hospital. And my mentor at the time, he was a graduate of Tuskegee University, and that's how I kind of got into it. So for me, I kind of resonate with that. And then currently, one of my things is still code switching, so that's a big thing for me because I feel like I have to come off a certain way to be professional or to be professional, the quote unquote, what does that even mean? And then the last thing is my name. I think I also get name discrimination because my name itself does not scream Latinx, but I am. And so a lot of people don't know what am I? I feel ethnically ambiguous. And I think maybe some people on the call could also identify with that when you don't know if your name is really like who you are, because no one would assume I speak Spanish fluently from my name. So those are some of the struggles that I've encountered. But here at this hospital is amazing. There's a lot of diversity amongst my colleagues. I can talk and act how I want. I don't care if I'm the spicy Latina. They know, like I'm from the East Coast. Oh, here's the Bronx coming out. And, those things don't bother me anymore. I think all of this stuff also comes with age and maturity, where you start to realize, you know what, I'm not even paying attention to those things anymore because maybe it's just coming from a place of love. So,
honestly, I'll chime in, to me, it happened the other way too. I remember coming back to the Bronx from undergrad, during the summers and winter break, and having people be like, "Oh my God, you speak like a white girl now." And I was like, "I don't know, what does that even mean? What does it mean?" So I identify with the code switching portion. Or going to the DR and people are like, "You don't talk like a Dominican now, you talk like a gringo." Oh God, what do I talk? What do I sound like?
I can chime in, and it's funny because, here in Louisiana, there's a huge African-American population, Black population. And for me, one of the funny things is obviously, I don't look Hispanic or Latinx. I can walk into the room and as soon as I open my mouth, it's all good. But, it was funny because then the Black people were like, "Oh, we thought you was white." I'm like, well, I guess my skin is white, but I guess I'm not white, right? So for me, that ambiguity is the other way. It's like, that whole association with the color of the skin. So that's always kind of helped reframe and realize that perspective. But one of my experiences was actually going way back to undergrad. That's been a pivotal experience that I still talk to. And it's my very first week of undergrad. I had just gotten here to LSU. And at LSU, you could take some tests and test out of certain courses. So I had tested out of all the Spanish classes. And when I showed up, they assigned all the Spanish courses. I went to the department and they're like, "Well, no, but you come from a Spanish-speaking country as your native language, so you cannot get credit for that." And I said, "Well, so can people from here get credit for the English courses?" "Oh, yes." And I was like, "So what's the difference, right?" So that was the first time that I faced something that I was like, "Wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. What do you mean I cannot get credit, but the local people can, right?" So I pestered her every day, twice a day, went to her office for a week, and she said, "Fine, I'm going to give you the credits and here you go," right? So that experience motivated me, and that's part of my personality. And up to this day, it did two things. It showed me that, you don't take no for an answer, and it doesn't matter what's right, it's right, and you pursue it. But it also gave me the responsibility, and I still have that as a mentor, that if you have the power to help, if you have the power to speak up, not everybody needs to have that pressure on their shoulders, but if you want to take that on, then bring it on. And that really influences me as a mentor nowadays, because I know that if somebody that looks like me can experience something like that, then somebody that looks like Valerie or Ashtri or somebody else, I know it's 20,000 times worse for them, right? So I think that's a big part of that solidarity, of understanding we're not a monolith and we have a big power and responsibility. And whenever we can, we have to exercise that power, because I tell everybody, I said, I'm happy to be a chameleon. I'll walk into the room. I won't open my mouth, but guess what? I have a seat on the table and you ain't moving me from that chair when I sit down. So I have that, I think that's a big power that I have that other people might not have. But it also comes with a big responsibility to help the people that come behind us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Age does a great job at making you not care. I think back to my time at Penn and having a mentor who genuinely cared, but telling me to, at the time, wanted me to be successful in life and to tone down the Latin and the gay, and being told exactly that. The world wasn't ready for that. And I did for a very long time and realized that I wasn't being genuine. And when I stopped caring, and when my 305 accent comes out, and I might sound like Gloria Stefan or sashay down the hallway. I don't give a damn anymore. And I can say that honestly, I feel better. I feel that as a leader, I do a better job. I'm also extremely lucky that I work in a very liberal industry, and we are. If I worked on Wall Street, I probably would have a very different experience and would still be trying to be a different person. So I stopped caring until recently, where as someone who wasn't born in this country, left Cuba when I was 7, lived in Costa Rica, came here when I was 9, and never felt as much of an outsider until this last year, where all these thoughts are running through my head constantly. It's this constant fear of the what if. And that's has to be part of the conversation as well, of what if this happens? What if and that is different from how I have ever felt before. So I stopped caring, and then now I've got a constant anxiety.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. The what if which around career, or I missed.
I think around the what if being Latinx, being a potential target, not having been born here. It is that constant fear. Don't send me to Cuba because I haven't been there since I was a child, and I don't like the heat. I need AC. So it is that fear of what if I'm next? Okay. And I am. Yeah, it's yeah. So that is something that I do think about constantly.
There definitely have been some interesting changes in the past few years that probably have a lot of people doing some what ifs in their minds for sure. Any other thoughts on this one?
One thing that I can add and I can share is that in my experience, when I graduated, I thought Spanish was going to be the ticket to get any job I wanted. You mean I can do this job in 2 different languages? Let's go. But in the places that I was going to, it wasn't really valued. You know, it was different diasporas. Of course, there's Latinx people all over our country, but in where it has worked out for me, the places that I have ended up, there really haven't been that much clients. And so for a long time, I was like, well, this part of me, right? Who I am, this part, I wanted to express that, but I didn't have a place to do it. And that was really hard. It almost felt devalued. And that was tough. And then through a few other jobs, like, you know, we get, I think we mentioned name discrimination, and that certainly was part of my experience as well. You know, Ortiz, somehow everyone thought it was Ortega. Like, no, it's not. Nothing against any Ortegas. I'm sure they're great people, but there's this maliciousness out there that can happen, you know, and so we deal with that. But what I wanted to highlight was this wonderful gift that we have, particularly for those of us who are fluent in Spanish, they can practice in Spanish. And when we walk into that exam room, whether now or in the future, and there's a person there that has been troubled with something with their animal, and you can offer them native language, my goodness, that room changes so much, right? I'm seeing some shakes in the head. And my gosh, it's so nice to do it. We get paid no extra money for that, right? And and that's fine. It doesn't matter because it gives me such a gift in that day. And my day is instantly better, right? Any day that I get to practice one time in Spanish, I'm fine the rest of the day. I don't care what happens the rest of the day because There's just this air about it. And so, yeah, exactly. I thought, okay, I'm going to get to do this all the time. And it didn't work out. And there was a lot of years where it just wasn't part of my practice. It just wasn't. And those were tough. Those were tough. It was like, what is this? It's not worth it for anybody else. But now and again, it pops up. You know, Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. There's a lot of Latin folks here, but for reasons, you know, I don't get to practice in Spanish that often. But when I do, it's just a gem. So it's really fun.
Well, come down to Miami and you'll have lots of opportunities.
Exactly. Yeah. This does not apply to, like, you know, certain cities. If I was Chicago, if I'm anywhere else. But for those of us who are not in a center, yeah.
Yeah.
I will tell you, Miguel, if you go down to Miami, do not expect anyone to be on time for an appointment.
Oh, well, yes. Having just taken my 1-year-old for her 1-year-old appointment. We should have brought more activities because he was a lobby.
There is such a thing. Yes.
Well, you know, Miguel, you started to get into this too, though. We've been talking about challenges, and I knew we would have great conversations. We're already like starting to get down to the last 15 minutes, but there's also a lot of opportunity for strengths. And some of it may come through mentorship, because I've noticed as we've been talking, a lot of stories have popped up with mentors that have come up and have supported you. But when it comes to where you felt like it was a strength, it helped you, what comes to mind on that side?
I'm going to jump in. This is one of my favorite topics because at some point it's not how it benefits you, it's how it benefits both of you, right? So having a mentee and having a mentor, I mean, both persons in that relationship grow. And there has to be a good mentor. Like a poor mentor can actually destroy you. So again, you have, as a mentee, you have to have that discrimination. And probably it took me a while to get a mentor. Like, it wasn't a thing when I was living in Chile. There is or back then, many, many years ago, I'm still young, but it was many, many years ago. The relationship in academia was very hierarchical. So it wasn't like your professors weren't your mentors or your friends. Some of them were helping you through their career, but it wasn't a thing. So when I was abroad was when I started, getting to know that mentor-mentee relationship. I didn't know anything about mentorship, but I always wanted to have someone to ask things to. And then I was doing my master's at UC Davis, and I met all these great professors that were willing to help me and guide me in my career. And that was like eye-opening, right? For the first time, I felt supported. And there were no like Latino mentors. They were like regular, American mentors. But they were focusing on international students, and they were helping us because we didn't have that network of people. We didn't have that community, right? So they were kind of creating that community for us. So that was part of my master's in preventive veterinary medicine. We had a lot of international students back then. So the mentorship part is so, so important. And as mentors, I think I have grown so much, and we need that mentorship strategy throughout our careers at different times in our careers. So, for example, I have lots of mentees, but I also have mentors, right? So in pathology, I have mentors. In my leadership, I also have mentors. And that is a relationship that grows, and it has objectives, and we grow together. And sometimes it ends, but it ends beautifully. So we still keep in touch, and I still, give feedback to them. And with my mentees, it's the same thing. I grow with them, but at some point they don't need me anymore, right? So then that relationship kind of evolves differently. And it's just acknowledging that both parts really grow and nurture each other. So that's how it's supposed to be, or that's how I think it would be, like the ideal world.
Now I'll chime in because I mean, you hit a lot of the things that I would have said, but I do love something that Javier said earlier, right? Like being able to think about how others experience the world, and if I experience it this way, thinking about how others may experience it and saying, okay, what can I do to make the world a little bit better, right? Like when Ashtri said Bronx, like I immediately was like, yes, Bronx, okay, here we are. And I see that, right? I remember maybe even 5 years ago just thinking like, where are like the people who have Dominican heritage who are in veterinary medicine in the US? And I still don't know as many that are, you know, my generation and older, but what I've noticed is every time I mention it, I find another mentee that is like, oh my gosh, this person has something that we can immediately create a connection. And it's not the country, right? It's the fact that we have similar heritage and we can identify, and it creates that immediate connection. I'm talking about Queens, okay? This is about the Bronx, okay? This is the flipping comments about Queens in the chat. So I think it's so important to be able to see ourselves. And I remember when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do as I was going from being in the DR through high school, through undergrad, through college, I just kept seeing less and less and less people that looked like me at every single step of the way. And I kept thinking, like, what is it? Where are they going? What do we do? And the answer we came up with was creating Pawsibilities Vet Med, right? Like a place where you could find people who had similar backgrounds to you, who could mentor you based on whatever it was that you wanted to. Because what I saw in myself was that I got to where I was because of the mentors that I had, the good ones and the bad ones. And like I learned what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And so I think mentorship really, really drives this profession forward.
I want to piggyback on something that Maria said that I think is something that, you know, us in academia maybe think a little bit more, but sometimes people in practice don't. And that's, you know, in the U.S., that's one thing that the U.S. does really well is a mentorship aspect. But in Latin America, like Maria's experience, I had the opportunity to work in Latin America for a while over the past, 10 or 12 years. I have great colleagues there, great academics there. And you know, the challenge is that hierarchical structure in Latin America is still there. So the people that are in Latin America need a lot of help because they have no clue. People are not helping them. So that's something else that we need to, sometimes we're in a little bubble here in the US and we're doing our own Latinx thing here in the US. But we got to remember there's those people that are still coming from Mexico and Colombia and Argentina, Venezuela, whatever, right? Honduras, wherever the case might be. So that is a completely different mindset. And you have to kind of start from scratch, right? From the bottom floor and build it up. So I think that's another important thing to remember, that background where people come from. And that's not just Latin America. I work with a lot of students from Asia, Korea. I mean, the hierarchical structure is still there, right? So, I think that's a big part of it, kind of taking that step back and going to what's the system in your country where you come from, and then tailoring that mentorship. But we just had a panel at LSU the other day, and that's one of the things I told the students. I said, I wouldn't be here where I am if I didn't have great mentors. And I always tell my students, you have to build your professional network. We tell them, you wouldn't have to be BFFs. If you don't like me personally, that's fine. But we are a resource for you, right? And we can help you get places. We can make things a lot easier for you. So building that professional network is so important, because then you have people that you can call for resources. You might not know the answer, but you can refer that student or that mentee to somebody else. So that, to me, is part of the beautiful thing of veterinary medicine, is that you get to build this professional network of people that start as colleagues and become as friends. And that, to me, is one of the most satisfying things of this career, for sure.
Agreed. I hear a lot of people say that this profession is overall typically very supportive. We've got some special individuals, but in general, it's a very supportive profession. So yes, everyone's mentioned there's some good mentors. There's some mentors that need to learn a few things, but in general, there's opportunities out there. I know this question came up too when Daniel and I were preparing for this too. Please feel free to keep talking about mentorship and your thoughts around that. But also, if if there was ever a point where maybe you found mentorship in a surprising place too, because that may also be helpful. Maybe a place that people wouldn't normally think about. I mean, luckily we have groups like Pawsibilities and the LVMA now that people can start to come together. But if there's also any other ideas around support or mentorship that may look a little bit differently, like Valerie talked about calling somebody, well, walking on the treadmill, right? You know, having a group that you start to form. If you have any ideas there too.
Yeah, I could speak on that. When I moved out to California, it definitely was important for me to find like a group of people that I meshed with and all of that. And one thing that was important to me is my faith. I was born Catholic, so I'm Christian. And so one thing that really was like a mentorship in a very unusual way is actually my Bible study group when I moved out here. One of the Bible study leaders, like she just kind of took me under her wing and like she just became this confidant where I could just kind of tell her about all of my problems and issues. It was just more like therapeutic, if anything. But she ended up being a really good mentor to me, just doing life here, doing life at work. And I felt like it did help improve my work-life balance being here and just giving me that extra confidence, like how do I do my everyday, you know, in a veterinary setting. So that for me, that was really an important part of my growth as a veterinarian here in California.
Such a good point, right? Because we're first and foremost human beings, and there's a lot to us. I know we put a lot of our identity on what we do because we're very passionate about it, but finding those opportunities outside of maybe the work setting too are great places to find support.
Get a hobby. So
Get a hobby.
Married to your work, you know, that's so important. You know, especially this younger generation, it's about life-work balance. And I always tell them, look, you got to find something to do. You got to schedule your personal time, find something else that has nothing to do with veterinary medicine and you know, enjoy it and do it. And that really helps keep you grounded because then you find other people like, okay, you're a vet, cool, whatever. But eventually they really don't care, right? Either that or kids. Your kids don't care either. So, you know, that's another option to get humbled.
A good point.
And then just remembering that when it comes to things like, you know, mentoring and community, you can learn things from everybody around you. I think we get this idea of like, oh, a mentor has to be this like ideal person. But I love the idea of being able to, you know, to find that community and that sense of belonging in so many different places.
Exactly. All right. Well, we are close to time. So I'm going to see, Daniel, have you seen any questions yet? Or can I maybe pull out one more question? And if you have a question, audience, please put them in. None yet. Okay. All right. Then we've had such a great discussion. Let me throw out a huge question to wrap us up. And if you might notice it, I think it might be a big question, but as kind of some final thoughts for our audience today, and we're thinking about, again, our topic being what it means to be Latinx in veterinary medicine specifically. What comes to your mind that you would want to leave people?
I would say I'm going to leave it on an optimistic note and say that we're in an amazing time in veterinary medicine because things are moving forward and we're progressing. And at LSU, we have 57 Puerto Rican students right now. We've been recruiting for the past 4 years, and we have one of the biggest classes of Puerto Ricans. So I get to speak Spanish every day. You know, I'm going to make everybody jealous now. Make Miguel jealous. But I think we're in an amazing time of veterinary medicine where the future is bright for Latinx community. There's been a little bit of a pushback, but we're not backing up. So I think, you know, optimism, you know, and I think that's the important thing. And the more we continue to do this, and LVMA has done an amazing job on this and promoting it, and it's just that mass effort. I feel fortunate, although I'm in the latter part of my career. I'm glad that I'm here now. And I'm looking forward to seeing what all those people and the students that come behind us are going to do and see them in leadership positions, because I think that makes me feel optimistic. Despite everything that's going on in the country right now and everything else, I am always optimistic. And something I want to share with Paul real quick is, Paul, remember, with this community is with you, so please never feel alone. because we're all here for each other. So I know it's easy to feel negative some days and loom and gloom, but we got each other's back, and that's what's going to keep us moving forward.
So I think that answers the question in the chat really well too. So the question is about adapting and handling some of the political changes and challenges that we kind of alluded to earlier. I think, Javier, your answer was a great one for that one, but if anyone else wants to comment on that, it's an elephant in the room. So we'll pull out the elephant. Anyone else want to comment some words of wisdom on that?
Yeah, I wanted to piggy off of Javier, and as a representative of the ACVIM, the DEI committee, we are standing very strong in our pursuit for improvement for our resident candidates, all of our DEI initiatives. We're not paying attention to any current administrative pushbacks. We are standing strong and firm in what we want to do in our commitment. So at this point, we're just, keep the marathon going. So.
Yeah, I think going with what you've both said so far, I think really having each other's backs and just as a community staying strong, supporting each other. And if you want to do more and you want to be more active, try not to do all of it, right? Like pick one thing, pick two things, pick an area where you feel like you can make the most impact, or the area where you feel like you will get most fulfillment, whatever it is, but don't try to do it all. Don't try to do it alone. And when you're thinking about that community, make sure that you're thinking about the whole community. I think it's easy sometimes to think of like, oh yeah, like the other veterinarians or, the people that work at this one practice. We go beyond, we're present in every aspect of community across the U.S. and every single profession that you can think of. Veterinary medicine is at the backbone. So just staying together and strong as a community.
And visible. I would add strong together, visible. We may call our fruits different names. We got different slang, but ultimately we are one. We may look different, like a rainbow, but it's important that we stay united and together.
I would add that the nature of our work is to take care of others, to take care of creatures, beings that can't communicate with us. And they don't care what hat their owner is wearing. And it's hard. Again, I work in some places where my clients are quite different than I am. And that can be hard. I get that. That's hard. But I'm there for the animal. And it's hard to wrap my head around it, but we're also there to help individual, regardless of what they believe in, regardless of where they're coming from. In that moment, you're there for almost a higher calling. Take care of your community, take care of those around you. You can't take care of everybody, and stay off social media. That's my advice. That's what I can add to the conversation.
Unless it's Megan's podcast.
Be very selective and intentional. Yes. I'm going to take that and run with that. It really does help to be very intentional in what you surround yourself with. And if you are intentionally surrounding yourself with the good mentors, the positive mindsets, the people who are, making a difference, and I think that really, really, really helps. It really does.